Kate convinces James that getting the Birkin bag is just the first step to joining the elite circle of ultra-rich women, which could benefit their business, especially since one of the women, Mrs. Sue in the group, owns 3 amusement parks. James agrees and scrambles to borrow enough money for Kate to buy the bag. Emma finally brings the bag to Kate, who explains how important it is for their family, calling it their lifeline. With the Birkin in hand, Kate successfully integrates into the wealthy women's group. Kate, Emma, and Ginny start hanging out more. Emma's company rewards her with a European cruise for her outstanding work. She asks Kate for advice, and Kate suggests upgrading to a suite, saying the experience is worlds apart. Emma is inspired, while Ginny feels a little down since her pregnancy prevents her from traveling. Emma prepares for her trip, believing it'll be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. While shopping for clothes, she notices that, as she gets older, she cares more about quality than brand names or trends. Kate also lends her some of her best dresses for the trip. Soon after, Ginny and Pete receive terrible news: Ginny has a miscarriage. She's devastated and in disbelief. She feels even worse when she notices Pete's indifferent reaction. She starts wondering if he's secretly relieved they won't have to worry about having kids anymore. Meanwhile, Kate realizes Mrs. Wang has been treating her like a helper, making her bake for the other women while they gossip. After the guests leave, Kate gives Mrs. Wang a reality check. "You're wasting my talent on pastries. I can help you earn real respect from these women." Mrs. Wang stays quiet, but she knows Kate is serious. Emma's cruise day finally arrives, and she's all smiles until she sees her room. It's small and far from luxurious. Even the ship's restaurants are divided between economy and luxury class. Emma heads to the fancy restaurant and asks for a window seat, but the waiter tells her it's reserved for people who booked in advance. That evening, Kate visits Ginny to comfort her after hearing the news from Pete. Later that night, Emma puts on a beautiful dress that Kate lent her and heads to the first-class bar for a drink. The whiskey she orders is way too strong, and she almost chokes on it. A man at the bar notices and sits next to her, joking that Scottish whiskey might be a bit much for her, and orders her a Japanese one instead. He shares an odd story about an island in Greece, Paros, where they wash human bones with Scottish whiskey during a ceremony after a person has been buried for 3 years. Emma laughs, thinking he'd tell that story no matter what drink she ordered, but it does make her smile. They chat by the railing, and Emma is clearly enjoying his company. Turns out, he noticed her earlier, eating alone at the restaurant. His name is Kevin. He offers to upgrade her room to a suite, but Emma refuses and decides to upgrade it herself. Meanwhile, Kate and James's company is struggling, and they have to let go of 2 longtime employees. A friend hears about their situation and lends them some money. James is upset, but Kate reassures him that she'll secure the big order from Mrs. Sue's family. When Kate learns that the rich moms are sending their kids to horseback riding lessons, she sells a few of her designer items to afford lessons for Henry, hoping to get closer to Mrs. Sue. Ginny and Pete go for tests to find out what caused the miscarriage. Ginny's mom comes to stay with them for a while to take care of her, bringing along Ginny's cat to cheer her up. Pete feels uncomfortable with her mom around, but Ginny isn't backing down this time. Emma wakes up in her suite feeling refreshed, despite the nearly $3,000 extra cost. She decides to deal with it later. Meanwhile, Kate meets Mrs. Sue at the horse riding school. Thanks to Mrs. Wang, Kate learns that Mrs. Sue is the second wife of her wealthy husband. Despite the wealth, Mrs. Sue struggles because her stepson doesn't like her, and she hasn't been able to have a child yet. One day, the same limited bracelet Kate has recently sold. At the riding school, she also witnesses Mrs. Sue being snubbed by her stepson, even though she clearly cares about him. When Henry tells James that Kate made him take riding lessons, James is upset. Kate explains that one of the women in the group has both of her kids going to Oxford because she invested in their education early on. Kate insists that they need to focus more on Henry's future and make more money to provide the best for him. James doesn't seem thrilled. That night, Kevin invites Emma out again and takes her to the luxury restaurant. He doesn't need a reservation but slips the waiter some money to secure a window seat. Kevin seems to be a VIP because even the chef comes out to greet him. Emma is impressed. During dinner, Kevin opens up. He's been financially independent for a while, even though he's only 37. Now, he spends his time traveling the world and seeking thrilling experiences. He suggests taking Emma on his next adventure. To thank him, Emma cooks him a simple tomato and egg dish, and Kevin gifts her a bracelet he noticed she liked earlier. Meanwhile, things aren't going well for Pete at the TV station. He's worried about losing his job and has to work overtime, breaking his promise to stay home with Ginny. She's furious, feeling that Pete doesn't care about her or the baby they lost. Ginny starts to regret marrying Pete, while her mom defends him, saying he's talented and ambitious. She insists that Pete is just stressed about work and tells Ginny that having a husband is important for a woman's life. This only makes Ginny angrier. Later that afternoon, Pete comes home to find his fish tank unplugged. Turns out, Ginny's mom tried to unplug it for 2 hours to save electricity but forgot to plug it back in, and a few fish died. Pete is livid. Now even Ginny's mom is upset with him, telling him it's just fish, while he didn't even show that much emotion when he and Ginny lost their baby. To make matters worse, Ginny's mom made fish for dinner, not the ones from the tank, and Pete can't handle it anymore, so he storms out.